I'm doing it. So whether you're ready or not.
I'm winging it. I'm doing it. I'm winging it. Wicked. Someone watched Ali G last night.
I saw that clip today, specifically with Martin Freeman in it. Anyway, hi everyone. It's
Hello.
Friday. We talk amongst yourselves. We're busy.
We've been live streaming for the last 2 hours.
We have.
To ourselves.
We haven't. I did forget to unplug the phones though. Oh well. Happy Friday. Hope you're all very well. Today is a day we don't have a ZF. I'm just going to say that now. I know half of you are going to leave.
Those are fakes.
We were supposed to have a ZF for this stream. We will have one for next week's stream. There was a little bit of a change in scheduling that was entirely out of our control, and we really, really did try, but unfortunately we couldn't get our hands on one. However, if you just imagine this a little bit bigger, you basically got it.
There you have it, folks. That's the type of content you subscribe for. And if you haven't, you should really do that.
But ironically, I was looking at Kai's video, and he put the ZFC and the ZF side by side, and I mean, if we had a black ZFC, then yes, the top looks exactly the same.
But it is bigger though.
It is a little bit
Yeah,
bigger.
so it's quite like, I don't know, at least 1 centimeter taller.
Yeah, and obviously because it needs to house that nice full frame sensor. But what we do have here is what it's based off of.
Yeah, Nikon FM2, the classic, and you know.
I find it funny how Nikon always, both for the ZFC and the ZF, said that the design was based off the FM2. Like they've forgotten that the FM3A was a camera.
I know, it was for rich people, I think. That's the reason. Yeah.
I don't quite understand it. Anyway, first of all, thank you for being here to listen to us waffle this afternoon. A huge thank you to all of you who've already contributed to the coffee fund.
Wow.
We need it.
Thank you. Definitely.
Marvel, who said, got my coffee.
Thank you, Marvel.
Got my beanie in record time and got my ZF ordered. Life is good.
Nice.
Sounds good to me. Thank you to Vince, who said, if only people who look pre-digital are also considered cool.
Thank you, Vince.
Thank you, Vince. And thank you to Fred, who said, hit that like button for Becky and Con. Please.
Thank you, Fred.
Yes, the channel needs it. We also have a couple of very quick shout outs to do. First up, a quick shout out to John and Marilyn from Connecticut. John, best of luck with all the things that you are going to have to undergo shortly with your op, and we look forward to seeing you on the other side.
Yep.
And then you had a thank you.
Yeah, I need to thank Keith because I've got a little parcel this morning from United States. I think it was from United States.
I assume so. No, from... he says,
oh, it's Canada.
He says
It's
Vancouver
Canada.
on there.
Sorry, Keith. Here you go. You know. But anyway, he sent me the strap. We talked about wrist straps.
Yes.
And he sent me the one that he uses, and it looks very comfortable. So I'm looking forward to testing it. But thank you very much, Keith. I appreciate it.
There you go. There's our shout outs done. And thank you to Adrian for your contribution.
Thank you, Adrian.
To the Coffee Fund as well. So CB is catching our stream while bike riding 25 miles to work. Rather you than me. That's very, very ambitious of you. I noticed that. So
yeah, like look at the road, okay?
yeah.
Just, you know.
We'll just talk.
Unless you're pelotoning it 25 miles to work.
Right.
He works from home.
That's right.
You know, still makes his 25 miles run every morning.
It's brilliant. That's dedication. Yeah. So Thaddeus points out that Rishi's video on the ZF is superb. Definitely worth checking that out. Rishi has already brassed his up.
Yeah, it's almost like Richard has access, some early access to the camera. I don't know how he gets it, but it's an interesting thing, isn't it?
It helps being a Nikon employee, but he has obviously had it for, I would say, a little while, considering that he's managed to get his all brassed up.
About 3 years, I think. Yeah, we've heard about it 3 years ago.
No, we haven't. Don't annoy the people. We didn't hear about it 3 years ago. Obviously, there are going to be some people that are going to talk about the fact like, oh, is this sign of things to come? I think we will discuss that. What we'd like to know from you today, though, is do you have any questions? Obviously, we will try and answer as many as we can. Mm-hmm. I will, full disclosure, say that the presentation we originally had on the ZF differed slightly from the final product.
Yeah.
There were a couple of small factors that, well, for me was kind of a big deal. I'm fairly certain we thought we were going to have a shutter guard.
Yeah, we that was implied to us. Mm-hmm. Let's say that. And it wasn't at the end.
And it wasn't. So I was, even on Wednesday, still telling people, I was told it had a shutter guard, and then found out, no, it doesn't.
Yeah, the way it works, if you don't have access to the actual model, but you have heads up, NDA heads up, you don't really know the final product until there's announcement at 5 a.m. in the morning UK time. So what normally happens is I get up very early in the morning, we have the video recorded, but I get up early in the morning and I add the images to the discussion that we're having. And one of the discussions we were saying that the camera comes with a shutter guard.
And then
and it wasn't there, so I had to chop it off, and I had to make sure that, you know, obviously going through Rich's video, going through all the Nikon, you know, specs and everything, just to make sure that, you know, we're not going to say something that is not there.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, anyway, it's a little bit challenging, I have to say, particularly when you've just got information that was given a little while back and then
a little while back,
and then you don't know anything that is actually going to be in the final model because you don't get to see it in your hands. There's a couple of people asking about Plena.
Oh, yeah, have you
just
seen
got
that?
an email teaser trailer. Yeah, Nikon. I mean, I think this came out probably a few minutes ago. I don't know actually. But I did see the teaser.
So apparently Plena is a lens, according to like the video that you've seen. The guy kind of takes a picture and then he starts drooling really.
And then he kind of like looks like he's had an epiphany, which is very interesting. Now, Daryl says, have you seen the teaser? What's your take on what lens it is? It looks big. I mean, he's obviously holding a Z8 because we're familiar with the size of it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's chunky. It looks like the size of an 85 1.2.
I mean, it's very difficult to actually imagine things because you know what's coming out. I'm just kidding. It looks like a chunky lens. Well, assuming that on the roadmap, what do we have left? We have 35 1.2 left. And 1.3 1.8, isn't it? So
they haven't put apertures on them, so we don't know.
We assume that's
our
what
assumption is 35 1.2 because what else is it going to be? We've got a 50.
Or 1.35 1.8. I mean, both can be quite chunky. If you think about
1.35 1.8. I mean, unless they throw us a complete curveball and put a 105 on there. I was literally talking to someone on Wednesday, to Mark, who came in on Wednesday, and we were talking about the different lenses that are coming out or that we're hoping to see. And I was saying how much I'd like a 105 1.4E in a Z version. 105, I mean, that would probably be a 1.8 as well because of the size, I'm imagining. But
105?
If they did a 105.
Well, I mean, there's 105 1.4E though.
I know, but
I was just actually holding one in my hand. And I had this lens for a year and I sold it. And every time we get a second-hand one coming in, I'm looking at it and a lot of memories coming back. It's a wonderful, wonderful lens.
It really, okay. I'm just going to look it up because people keep asking what Plena means. Well, okay, those are not
I guess it's Latin
or Greek or something.
It's not a PL mount, I assume, because...
Well, apparently it's a mixture between Jamaican and Panamanian music. So obviously it's a musical lens.
Wagwan.
I
was watching Top Boy. So, the other day.
You were?
So I'm all kind of, I know all the language now.
You know all the
of the hood,
That's so funny.
Yeah. Plena means full from Spanish to English.
Okay. So Vince says Plena is complete.
Yeah.
Champagne Sumo said Plena, will it be a plentiful? And I got my thought was that it was from kind of like Greek or Latin or something meaning like plenty. Or where does the word plenty come from? I would assume that it has some origin in the word Plena. So, I mean, I guess it's going to be like a big chunky, plentiful lens.
But you know what's interesting to me? That obviously we have the S lenses. And we have 1.2 range, which is 51.2, 85 1.2, right? So, and 35 is expected to be 1.2.
Yeah.
So if it's a 35 1.2, why would they call it Plena? That's an interesting thing. And then we also have Noct series, which is 59.95 lens.
That's right. Yeah. That was my initial thought was like it's a kind of a nod to the Noct in that it's got a special name. Why does it have a special name?
So since the teaser came out, we know it's a Z mount lens, so it's not a PL mount. So Plena is not a PL mount. That's what it is. So it seems like it's an entirely new series of lenses.
Yeah.
And obviously, if this one's released, maybe we'll see more in that range.
Yeah, potentially. I don't know. I mean, I think it's going to be one or the other that's on the roadmap. I always love to have the kind of odd curveball thrown in there. And we have had that from Nikon. They've said, oh, we're actually announcing a lens that you've never heard of before, and here it is. So it could be my fabled 105 1.4.
Yeah, keeping us on our toes.
Yeah, exactly. So Andy says Plena from Latin, space filled by matter from plenus full. So we're thinking like full. For me, that doesn't mean anything in relation to lenses.
Okay. Here's my thought. looking at the teaser, so if you haven't seen the teaser yet, go quickly check the teaser. You don't need to listen to the audio. There's nothing there. But it looks like he's taking a picture and all we see is a silhouette full of bokeh.
Yeah.
So which means it's going to be a really wide open lens, wide aperture lens, and produce beautiful bokeh. So my bet is 135.
Right.
Because 35, I wouldn't like it's going to be a bokeh
it's
lens.
Not really
but
a planar.
Exactly.
Right.
If you see what I mean. But again, it's going to be an S-type lens as well. So like from what we know that is on the map, on the road map, I think it's 135, 1.8, unless it's a different aperture, of course, or it's completely different lens that is not on the road map.
Right. Well, Terry says that planar, obviously, there are planar lenses.
Yeah. Well, planar is a Chinese version of planar, like you have Adidas, Abibas and all that. So
planar lenses are symmetrical, which is a very different thing to what planar means. But anyway, which means there's the same arrangement of elements to each side of the center of the lens where the aperture is located. That's really interesting. Joseph points out that planar looks to be written on it like the Noct. So we're leaning towards that as an explanation that Nikon have just got this there's going to be something special about it, whatever it is. Rodri said new name for defocus control. If we think it's a 135 or even a 105, obviously they did defocus control. Problem with defocus control lens is that nobody really knew how to use them.
Yeah, what my worry is if the writing is the same as Noct.
It's going to be expensive.
It's going to be expensive.
That's
my
what John
worry.
Just said. He said, doesn't it just mean that it's going to be expensive?
Nikon doesn't just put fancy writing on their lenses unless there's a price tag.
Yeah. Seth says, hi Seth.
Hi.
Seth says, planar means it's good. It means it's good Nikon is pumping out releases no matter what it is. So that's what planar means. Plentiful, all the releases. Just
plenty of releases,
release more things.
Check out Seth's video on Nikon ZF, by the way.
Yes.
It's a good one.
For sure, check that out. We've got some great videos out on the ZF from people that got to see one beforehand. I'm not bitter and twisted about that at all.
Well, I really liked our PowerPoint presentation, what we did,
Come on, give us a break.
If you're not going to smile, what else can we do?
Now, what I will say, Seth said my vid needs some help. Guys, as soon as you finish watching the live stream, but please don't leave before the end of it, then go and watch Seth's video.
And people multitasking nowadays. You can't just watch a movie without watching, looking at your phone, isn't it? So you can check the video on the phone while watch us on a beautiful 65-inch OLED.
You can walk while chewing gum at the same time.
Exactly, that's what I do.
Watch both videos at the same time. So for those who have pre-ordered, pre-ordered your ZF. ZF?
Wow.
Doesn't sound right to me.
Are you moving to the States soon? Are you practicing?
Yes, that's what it is. I'm going to the States at the end of the year. I'm practicing
just
so I can
just a little correction, okay? It's a Nikon ZF, okay?
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah. For those who have pre-ordered your Nikon ZF in America, I have no idea when it's coming out. In England, if you've ordered a Nikon ZF, you will receive it hopefully in October. October is the release date at the moment. And the nice thing is that we've got, when you pre-order from us, even if you've already pre-ordered from Wednesday, you get the small rig battery, not battery grip, the hand grip, as they call it.
Yes.
Small rig grip that goes on the ZF. You get the MH34 charger, which doesn't come in the box.
Yeah, they don't include chargers anymore. I guess the reason for that is because they expect you just to use your USB-C cable and just plug it into your camera directly from the AC outlet.
Yeah.
So I guess if you got a new iPhone, you will have USB-C there as well.
That's right. Yeah. So you get the charger, the small rig grip, and you also get an SD memory card, which will be a UHS 2.
3 freebies.
So you get 3 freebies if you order it from Grays, not if you order it from somewhere else. I can't speak for them. And Deborah said, I'm now calling everything Z, which is driving my friends crazy.
Yeah, cancel your B&H order. Keep your other RAM order. Just kidding.
Yeah, for those of you over in the States, obviously, you want to order it locally, I understand.
Exactly.
But for our UK people, order it from Grays and then you'll get your freebies, which is only if you pre-order before the 31st of October. So there is a time limit on that as well. In terms of colours, people have been asking us about the colours. They're only available at the Nikon store directly.
Okay. And do you think eventually we'll see a silver version of this camera? Because now we only got black.
No, I don't. But I don't know if there would be that much.
Really? You don't think that's like eventually after releasing this, they release Black ZFC?
As opposed to the other way around.
And then they're going to do this. Yeah, exactly. Other way
Maybe,
around.
but it'll be a Nikon store exclusive, so I don't really
True. Boom.
Seth said Adorama and Grays are allies, and that is correct. So you can order from Adorama in the States or from Grays in the UK, and we'll all be happy. On air. Have you tried turning it off and on again? Yes, that's exactly what I did. Okay, we're back. Hi.
Hi.
I don't know what it
Haven't noticed you here. What you been up to? Because we've been having fun out here.
We have. I have no idea what happened. It just decided to give up the ghost. We just unplugged everything and plugged it all back in, and we're back.
It's the hotness.
I was saying something really deeply important.
Yeah.
And
Hope you enjoy some commercials while you're waiting for us.
I don't even know if it plays commercials.
Some Canon ads, you know.
I don't know if anyone heard the 180 to 600 answer, but basically it's a heavier lens. Bear that in mind. At some point, we will do some tests against the 100 to 400. I think that was where we left. Jeff said, is this what happens when you make fun of Nikon cameras? Yes. And we did try turning it off and on again, and that was
Yes.
that was what worked. So the top plate of the camera is brass, is what we were told. Brass top plate
Well,
and
apparently
dials.
the dials, like according to the new info, it's just dials.
So now the top plate is metal, but not the dial.
Yeah, magnesium alloy.
Sorry.
So basically, you can brass up your dials, but you don't want to brass up the edges of the top frame because the color is going to be different.
Good. Okay. Excellent. I'm glad that we clarified that. Thank you to Randall for your contribution to the Coffee Fund. Seth has threatened to set up our stream when he comes over. Seth,
Which is going to be soon.
yeah, we are really looking forward to it. It's already in the diary, and very, very much looking forward to it. Honestly, we've got all the mod cons, but they don't always behave. The question on the memory cards, because a couple of people said, can you comment on the memory cards for the ZF? I don't like micro SD cards, but my feeling would be if I have a ZF, I would put a very large micro SD in there, and I would just leave it in there as my potential backup.
Kind of leave it and forget it. Yeah.
I have a 1 terabyte micro SD card in my Nintendo Switch, so I have no problem with big micro SD cards. Like they exist, and there's really no problem with them.
How many games do you have on there?
A few.
A few hundred?
No, probably not a few hundred. It's not full, but I started off with like 128 gig, and then went up and up and up, and then I was like, just stick a terabyte in there, and then I won't have to like change the memory card. Because when you change the memory card, that is a pain. Like if you run out of space, you have to do this whole thing with your computer. It's very important console talk right now. So it's much easier if you just leave the micro SD card in there and don't try and take it out and fiddle about with it.
But if you're looking at the SD cards, get the fastest one you can. I think it's about 300 megabytes per second nowadays. I mean, it's been like this for the last 2-3 years. The thing is, obviously, the camera can shoot high frame rates. It can shoot 4K videos. So, you know, at again, high frame rates. So if you need some of those, just get a fast memory card. Otherwise, get a medium memory card, about 170, 200 megabytes per second. And that should do your kind of okay street photography type.
That's right. Craig says, pop it in, leave as internal memory, replace / upgrade if ever needed. Ideal for what the ZF is. I agree with that. I think that's a brilliant idea.
Yeah, I'm just going to reply to Champagne Sumo. The vodka has to be just non-flavored straight.
Not pumpkin spice vodka.
Exactly. So if you need to clean your equipment, you can use it as well.
So thank you so much. I don't know if I thanked Randall. I think I did, but thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you to Champagne Sumo, and thank you to VJ for your first ever Coffee Fund contribution. Very much appreciated. Roy said, does Seth's setup come with zombie makeup? I think that we should do some kind of zombie special effects shoot with Seth when he comes over. Wouldn't that be fun? I will be the zombie. I love a good cosplay. I would be very happy to be the zombie.
Yeah, me too. I mean, you know, I don't even need the makeup. I'm ready.
Ready to go.
Exactly.
The micro SD card is very fiddly, so just be careful. That's
leave it there and that's it.
Never touch it again.
Exactly.
And let's talk about lenses, because David here said, I think I'm most excited to get my hands on some Voigtlander lenses to pair with the ZF. I've stayed away up till now since a manual focus lens with a Z8 or Z9 didn't make sense.
So I'm not alone there.
No.
With the assumption that I don't really need autofocus on this camera. I just use manual focus lenses with it.
I think the addition of the face detection in manual focus with lenses that have a chip on the back of them, like the Voigtlander lenses, like the AFD lenses, etc., is a really exciting addition. If you are a bit quirky like me and you have bought some older lenses and then had a chip put on them, then you can also use those, which is nice. I think I've got one chip lens. My 28 f 2.8 AIS is chipped. The 105
By you?
2.8. No, actually, I bought it like that. The 105. No, I had a 55mm that I chipped myself. Sold that. Wish I hadn't. Then I have a 105 2.5 that someone else chipped for me, and the chips come off.
Okay.
So it's not chipped anymore.
It's unchipped itself.
It unchipped itself. So do that at your own peril. So Chris said, when you detach the lenses, does the ZF have any sensor cover like the Z8? So no, sadly not, because the shutter is mechanical in the ZF, and apparently you cannot have the shutter guard and the mechanical shutter mechanism. I would love it if it were possible to just have the shutter in place and just have it down. But I assume they don't want to damage that, but then you're going to damage the sense. Like,
you know what puzzled me as well? Actually, there's no sensor VR lock on the camera, which is a weird decision.
It is weird.
You know,
it is an odd one.
So you can hear it moving according to Richie. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So the sensor stays exposed, as Seth says, which is unfortunate. I don't know why. And this was something I was asking way back when the Z6 and Z7 first came out. I don't know why they wouldn't just have an option to have the shutter left in place when you turn the camera off, like down. And I understand I don't want the shutter in place because when you change things, you can damage it. You can damage your sensor. But I mean, the sensor's just like there, open to all the elements, and it's like, what's better, having the shutter exposed to the elements or having the sensor exposed to the elements?
It's a tough one. I don't know, because I'm just thinking like if a piece of sand lands it, if you're on the beach on the shutter.
I know which one.
And then it works, and then you're basically your shutter is broken. I mean, they're so thin, they're so delicate that I'm just thinking.
You think that it's okay to poke the sensor, but
no, it's not going to poke the sensor. But I think just very, very light impact on the sensor it's not going to make a lot of damage compared to light impact on the shutter. Yeah. But I could be wrong on this one, so that's just kind of my
I think that they've had the same thought as you, so it is an odd one. Anyway, Dave says that the 6 and 7 had a glitch where you could pop the battery to close the shutter. I've never done that, and I've got a Z6. Maybe I'm just too well behaved with my Z6, and I just
you haven't hacked it yet.
Haven't jailbreaked.
Haven't downloaded all the movies on it.
No.
Okay.
There are a lot of questions about whether or not the tech that has gone into the ZF is transferable to the Z8 and the Z9. And I think that just like when
tech that went into Z8 transferable to Z8 and Z9?
ZF. Tech that went into the ZF. Will it go into the Z8?
Are we talking about firmware things, the software?
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
I would assume so, because I don't know what they'll put in there. But if you remember when the Z8 came out, shortly after that, we got a Z9 firmware update. Didn't have the same stuff in it, but we got one.
But I think that we'll see those things happening anytime soon. But yeah, my theory is that each kind of group that designed camera and firmware, they're like separate from each other. Which is a strange thing to me, because we see some features in one camera, we don't see the same features in another camera. So just to have one firmware team that designs it, but obviously I'm not an engineer, I'm not a software, so what do I know? So Nikon knows, exactly.
We've got internet issues again. I can see it.
Oh, that's annoying.
I can see it on the thing. It's flashing. That's really weird. Oh. Why does it keep doing that? Oh, it's back.
We are back. Okay.
So I just have to keep a little eye on the blinking light. Oh my goodness. Nope. And it's blinking again. Is there someone like downloading a movie? Oh my goodness.
Do you want me to just go?
Yeah, could you just go and check? I'm just gonna go and tell them off. Just tell them don't watch the live stream while we're streaming. I literally said that earlier. So our lovely staff, I know you're watching. If it's quiet, we'll watch the live stream while we're streaming. And I've said, please don't do that because it actually disrupts the live stream. So I'm going to just do a little dance and sing a little song. No, we're back. So Seth points out that, oh, well, he's gone now. Have a great day, Seth. You missed the second buffering, so good for you. But Seth pointed out that you're more likely to damage the shutter. I mean, it's a very fast-moving piece of mechanical equipment, and if you even dent it slightly, it would cause further problems. So I am assuming that is why they don't do that. Yes, Tom says they're downloading the Plena teaser in 4K. That's probably what it was, to be fair. No, I do know that sometimes they watch the stream, and I have said, please don't do that. To answer the questions of people who have Z62, I've just authorized all the GOW staff to go to the pub, apparently.
Oh, yeah, you're still here. Okay, good to see you.
They are still here.
Yeah, they're not on any dodgy websites like Nikon Rumors or anything.
Okay.
No, seems to be fine.
Bizarre. Jeff says, I'm thinking of swapping my Z5 for a ZF, but he said Z5 too. So I was wondering if this was like a mysterious additional.
Yeah, he's got a pre-production model. Clearly.
That's really exciting, Jeff. And then I think Dave earlier asked a similar question about the change from Z6 to like, is anyone upgrading from the Z6 II to the ZF? I personally have, obviously I've got a Z6. Mm-hmm. The ZF is a very interesting camera to me in terms of the things that have been added to it. The fact that it's 24 megapixel sensor doesn't overly excite me, but for a lot of things, 24 megapixels is completely fine. And I think for our video work, it could be quite interesting as well.
Well, my thinking is if you have Z6 II and you're waiting for Z6 III, then wait for Z6 III.
Yeah.
There's no point of getting 2.5 version of Z6 II, really. So, you know it's going to be better. Mm-hmm. But I think the answer is like, do you like the way the camera looks? Is that kind of, what tickle your feathers? Yeah. So, if you like all the knobs and dials, so then definitely that's the camera for you. But if you prefer more modern styling, and we can see that, let's say, reception of this camera was fantastic, but there's like small percentage of people saying, I don't understand why they release a camera like this in this day and age.
Yeah.
You look at Tom Hogan, who opens this conversation about how the camera should be used. In this day and age. Mm-hmm. And my answer to that is, if we have such a positive feedback on a camera like this, that means Nikon is going to sell some, they're going to make some money, that's going to fund further research of modern cameras that you like to use. It's nice to have different options, you like it or not. And if you don't like it, move on and wait for another camera.
Yeah.
So in terms of this, the answer is, if you like a modern styling, skip this camera. It's going to be one of a kind. They're not going to release one probably for another 2-3 years. It's not going to affect the future camera release. That 9 II is not going to come out with a retro styling or anything like that.
No, exactly. They will have their own line. I have some thoughts and feelings on that, but I do want to read these comments. Mm-hmm. Chris, first of all, thank you very much for your contribution to the Coffee Fund. Some people really do like the dials.
Yeah, that's the thing. There are people who like it. So if you don't like it, it's fine. It's good to have different opinions. The camera still exists. It doesn't mean that Nikon suddenly should cancel the release because you don't like it.
No, and VJ said, when you switch to aperture priority, what does the shutter speed dial do? I assume it becomes redundant. And that's true. Yes, the shutter speed dial just becomes redundant. If you're on aperture priority on this camera, for example, then your front, this is the ZFC, like imagine it's a ZF, just imagine for a moment. Your front dial will change your aperture and your shutter speed dial will do nothing. But similarly, if you don't want to faff about changing your shutter speeds like this, you can just put it on a third step, as it says here, which is essentially electronically changing the shutter speed in thirds of a stop, just as you would with any normal digital Nikon camera. So you can make it as kind of mechanical or as non-mechanical as you like. The same was actually the case for the DF as well, because a few people were like, I like the DF and I like the sensor and I like the price and blah, 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 but I don't want to change my shutter speeds manually. It's like, it's okay. You don't have to. Just put it on that and then you can ignore that dial. One thing that I really hope that they do, and I actually didn't see it in any of the press materials, but you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
Is auto ISO accessible from the outside of the camera? from what you've seen?
I haven't seen anything. I think I've read some comments that is done through the menus, but I could be wrong on this. Yeah, so without seeing the camera.
My instant reaction to that. Okay, great. Yeah, that's one thing that I wish that we could just have as an additional option on this ISO dial here.
Yeah, it's interesting because we all different people and we want different things from the same camera, if you see what I mean.
Maybe I'm in the minority of using auto ISO. But
well, no, I think you are actually in majority.
I don't use it all the time, but when I do, I really want to be able to access it from here.
So Leica has this thing on their rangefinders where you have your ISO dial, and then I think you have letter A there or something like this, or M or something like this, and you just set it there, and it's automatic ISO.
And Fuji have the same thing, don't they?
Probably.
Yeah. So that's what I was basing my thoughts off of. Now, a few people asked, do we happen to know if the bottom of the camera is metal or plastic? Like the DF was pretty good, but had a plastic bottom. Yeah, I don't know is the short answer, actually. That hasn't been communicated to us. Anything special about the black and white mode aside from just being a shortcut to monochrome JPEG? Not as far as I know. Obviously, we do have two different types of black and white mode. At some point, I am hoping that we will see a black and white in RAW, but it's going to have to be a different sensor, so I don't think that's going to happen. So
just to do with the build quality, so magnesium alloy is adopted on the front and top covers.
Oh, good.
So I assume not the bottom.
Yeah, okay, so that answers your question on that. What is C on the ISO and exposure comp dials? Okay, so Andy says that C is you allowing to... Auto ISO, no. Set ISO dial to C and then pick. Without seeing the camera, I feel a little bit uncertain as to how that makes sense, but apparently the C, I imagine, is your custom.
Well, hold that thought till next week, and I think the idea is that we will have a ZF with us. We will, Friday.
And then we're going to play with it and show you and be able to answer your questions because we'll have the actual camera in front of us, which will be great.
David says that the bottom of ZF was metal as well on the one he saw yesterday. So
oh, interesting. That's great. Tom says that he thought Kai said the bottom was metal. I'm in Kai's review, I didn't actually catch that, but I did see a lot of the comparison stuff, but it's quite possible that he did. Champagne Sumo is a Fuji and Nikon shooter. So I guess the question is, I saw Bure Perry's, I can't pronounce it. Hercule Poirot. Bure Perry's video about how the ZF will kill off Fuji. And I don't think it will because they're different cameras, but it is interesting that, and I'm very glad that Nikon have put a full frame retro looking camera in this space when really, I mean, Fuji don't have a full frame retro style camera. Yeah,
I can tell you from another angle. I was thinking of getting a digital M10 Leica. So digital rangefinder, manual focus, that's before ZF came out.
Yeah.
Now when ZF is out, and it costs a lot less than the M11, and even then M10 is going to fetch higher price, secondhand. I think that a part of all the tech that is built in, but if you just compare, let's say, like the way you would use camera for street photography.
Yeah.
I mean, pre-capture is really a cool new thing for street photography where you can pre-capture things.
Yes, true.
But generally, if you go to classic street photography, I would put a 28 manual focus lens on this big, on this bad boy. And I would set it to, let's say, 500, f11 or f8. And I'm going to set, let's say, my focusing distance to about 1.5 meters. And that's it. Off I go. Depth field will cover everything, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
So if I want to shoot digitally this way, the traditional way, Leica, and in terms of if you look at build quality and things like this. So having the camera at much lower price compared to Leica from Nikon and no one else, because again, I don't want to shoot APS-C format personally. Again, could be you like DX crop, that's absolutely fine. For me, full frame makes a lot of sense, and it's very difficult for you would be to tell me, it is what it is. So if you look at this point of view,
then in his ways.
Exactly, then ZF is actually a very nice proposition, and that's without adding all this latest text like autofocus speed and pre-capture and yada yada.
Yeah, exactly. I think that in terms of whether or not, so sorry, Abe Jose said just saw the mail from Nikon on the 27th. We talked about the Plena earlier, so hopefully you can skip back into the live stream before we got disconnected and find our thoughts on that one.
This live stream will come in chapters.
It really will. We should chapterize it at the end, like just skip this bit because this is where we buffer. So in terms of Z6 III, do you think this means that, okay, so now we've got a ZF in this basically £2,300 slot, right? Will we get a Z6 III that's maybe 33 or 36 megapixels and then a Z7 III further on down the line? Or do you think we basically just ousted the Z6 Mark III idea and we'll get a Z7 III, or have we gotten rid of the Z7 III because of the Z8?
No, because I think people who are using Z6 II, they would want to get the same body, the modern build, the modern design over the traditional retro design. And again, we can't call those non-professional cameras. You can shoot professional jobs with any cameras,
easily.
Even with Nikon F nowadays,
That's
so,
right.
but a lot of people who shoot commercially on Z6 cameras, they would prefer the same body, size, weight, as well as design. From another point of view is, I think when Z6 III comes out, they could be priced about the same as Nikon ZF, but ZF is going to be a premium proposition where you buy the feel more than and the looks.
Buying the experience.
With the tech. But then Z6 III is going to be, let's say, a camera with a better tech, and I don't think it's going to be, let's say, a lot more expensive.
Okay.
When it comes out, what's the Z6 II price?
1995 thereabouts.
Yeah, and what was RRP on that?
2099, I think.
Here you go. So we add a couple more years, we get inflation. So we're looking at something like maybe 2399 for UK, and in the US it's going to be $1,500 because that's how exchange rate works apparently.
Except you have to pay an extra $150 for a different color. No, so just to comment on that, someone was saying how it's 130 Canadian dollars more. That's Jason said the colors are awesome. The cost difference is bonkers though. $130 extra in Canada. I don't really know why that is, but I suppose they've got to charge a premium for the different colored leatherette.
If you really want Z6 III, would you wait for Z6 III or would you buy a ZF?
I don't know actually. I don't yet know if my Z6 is going to be traded up for a ZF. I'd like to see one. It would be nice.
Definitely.
I don't know if just not having a difference in resolution is enough for me to change the Z6, because the Z6 is very capable. When I use the Z8 and then I go back to using the Z6, I do feel like the Z6 is a bit prehistoric in terms of autofocus capabilities. But bearing in mind that 90% of what we use the Z6s for now is video work. The videos that we produce on the weekend are, most of them, produced on the Z6. Occasionally you get some Z8 footage in there, but my laptop will die if we if we use too much 4K footage from the Z8. So I tend to use Z6 footage on there, and it's totally fine for that. We're not trying to do we're not filming Olympics or the Women's World Cup.
Well, I think people noticed because they watched our videos.
Yeah. So you'll have seen.
They know the quality they should expect from our videos.
So Vahan, hi Vahan. Vahan
Hello.
says Z6 III only makes sense now, and that it will be the highest selling Z camera of all time. I think that what they did with the Z6 was really an excellent idea. They didn't try and make it do too many things. It just sat in the perfect spot for so many different types of creators, whether you were doing stills or you were doing video. And I think the Z8 is kind of similar in that way. It's like, okay, yes, it's much more expensive, but it is in the perfect spot if you are just purely a professional photographer. So it would be nice to see something in between those.
So do you think we finally will see a new sensor? Like I'm talking, even maybe a slight bump in resolution.
That's what I want. That's on my wish list. And I think if I keep talking about it enough, then maybe it will happen.
Well, I tried it with Z8. It didn't happen. No,
it didn't.
I should try harder next time.
Yeah.
But what we have at the moment is obviously we have 45 megapixel cameras. So we've got 3 models there, Z8, Z9, and Z7 II. Then we have 24 megapixel cameras, which are the rest of the full frame lineup. And then we have DX lineup at 20 megapixel cameras. And as Nikon says, 20 is plenty for DX. So they don't try to, reinvent the wheel there, But it seems like if you look at that, we start to see that they create one sensor and then they try to implement it into a cheaper models effectively.
Yeah.
So that's what we try and see. Will Nikon break the pattern and release a new sensor? So which is not 24.5 and let's say 45 megapixels. What do you think?
Yeah. I think that, what I want is a new sensor. I think that somewhere in the 30-ish range. Depends on whether it's going to be a Z7 III or a Z6 III.
Yeah, but would you want 24.5 megapixel new sensor?
Well, that's what we've got in the ZF.
Well, it's not exactly. It's not exactly a brand new sensor.
No.
It's a new version of. In my. That's what I'm thinking.
From what we know.
From what we gather, because the autofocus system is different. Autofocus system is on the sensor as well. So, so it's like some people ask, well, why? A lot of people said the processor is the bottleneck. No, the sensor is the bottleneck for the autofocus of Z6 II.
Right.
And why ZF has, while having the same sensor, the autofocus is different.
Yes.
Well, it seems like the processor there, which makes it different, but also you have more focusing points on ZF as well.
You do. So, and weirdly, although we don't quite know how it makes sense because we haven't seen it anywhere else except for in the literature that we saw much earlier on.
Yeah, from the graphics we saw for the full area coverage, so Z6 II sensor has 80 by 80% coverage of the full sensor with 81 point areas, while ZF has 89 by 96% coverage of the whole sensor with 299 points.
So that's a lot more coverage of the area of the sensor in terms of autofocus area, which means that technology I could see happening in a new Z camera. That one's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I like the fact that the Terminator's question is what happens when the new AI camera comes out and you can talk to your camera and it can talk back to you. Well, then you won't need to ever make any friends because you can just talk to your camera instead.
Don't need to even get up from the sofa, isn't it?
Sorry. So a few people said, what about a Z500, the Pro DX body? I think that
What about it?
I think that the DX cameras need a bit of a revamp.
Well, it needs to be,
lineup.
Definitely, absolutely.
Z50 Mark II, whatever that needs to be. The Z50 Mark II needs to be a Z500, in my opinion, like a Z Pro DX body.
Yeah, I think if we're trying to compete with the APS-C lineup from all other brands, we definitely need to invest in DX lineup.
That's right.
So obviously it's clear to us that it's not Nikon's priority. But my hope is that in 2024, they'll actually put attention to it because Z500 would be a good seller, I think, for a lot of photographers. But again, I don't know if we are underestimating or overestimating the people who would buy this camera.
Well, I have had this discussion with a few people recently who said, oh, I've got a D850, for example, and I'd like a DX camera to get the reach. And I'm saying, but why don't you just use the D850 on crop mode? Because when
or Z8 in the crop mode.
Or Z8 in the crop mode, because actually buying a DX camera at this point isn't going to give you an advantage in terms of autofocus speed or resolution or low light performance or nothing. So maybe Nikon have the same, and this could be flawed because I no longer use DX cameras as my main cameras, but I do think if you're trying to get the extra reach, particularly if you've already got one of those cameras, then that makes sense. If you don't, and you don't want to spend £4,000, and I do not blame you, then yes, it's a bit more of a pickle. And I would like Nikon to support the DX users by having offerings just at the lower level, the mid-range, and the much higher range. What we have right now is like 3 kind of middle-tier cameras. The Z30 is just a little bit below, but it's not entry level enough, really.
I think it's just, I don't feel excited about them at this stage.
I think that's just you.
At this stage, I feel like we needed definitely a bit of fresh air.
We do. Breathe into that
stay
space.
aligned, So I think, let's address Z6 Mark III as soon as we can, for next year, let's say first quarter. And then definitely let's look into GX lineup. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, Vahan wants to start a petition making us do a 2-hour live. I don't think I could handle it. Someone would need to come in and bring refreshments halfway through because, I would just lose it halfway. So now there was another question that I wanted to. Okay, so someone was asking about pixel shift. All right. Obviously, we
Yes.
haven't used it yet. We've seen the slides. We know what it is. We know how it works. What difference is it going to make? Well, instead of having a 24 megapixel image, you will have a higher resolution image because you're basically taking lots of different shots using essentially a shift in the pixels to take multiple images. But you do have to put those together in software, in post-processing software, to then get your resultant bigger image. What's the numbers on that?
Well, you got either option of 4, 8, 16, and 32 shots.
Right.
All of them will produce 96 megapixel image.
Together.
So, exactly. I assume the way we do it, as the other companies do it, they use vibration reduction on the sensor, which means it just moves the sensor, takes a shot, moves the sensor, takes a shot, yada, yada, yada. So
right.
Then you end up with all those bunch of raw images, which you import. Well, Nikon says NX Studio, so I don't know if other software supports it, so we'll find out. And then that creates you a one raw file, which you later can export to other formats.
So for someone who was asking, what if you use pixel shift on long exposures? I don't see how that would work because a little bit like when you shoot a panorama or HDR, if your subject is moving and then you're trying to stitch or put those pictures together in post-processing, it's only going to be as good as the subject is static. So if you've got moving subjects, your software would have to be super clever to be able to compensate for that. Photoshop, for example, actually not even Photoshop, there's a couple of others that we get recommended quite a lot. Like for focus stacking, you've got Helicon,
Yes.
which is like the highest rated focus stacking software. And that can sometimes compensate for a little bit of movement in your subject. But the idea is if you are focus stacking, shooting with pixel shift, doing panorama stitches, doing HDR, anything like that, the subject needs to be as close to being exactly how it is in the same position in every single shot for the best results. That was a really long way of explaining that.
Yeah.
I think you got it.
But it's interesting because if you start to look at pixel shift with other brands, there's lots of tests been done with things like GFX, 100 megapixel cameras and stuff. And from this research, a lot of people say, well, it's not worth the hustle because actually there's not much gain.
Yeah.
In terms of amount of details and image quality. But again, I mean, I think it's worth having anyway. So
it's worth having
if you want to use it or not.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about the fact that your 24 megapixel camera, which is give or take £2,000, dollars, etc., has the capability of being 96 megapixels?
96 megapixel.
96 megapixel, producing a 96 megapixel image, then I think that that's a nice thing to have, even if you're not necessarily going to use it every day.
Imagine you do a macro shot.
I do.
Like Becky.
Yeah.
You got a flower that is not moving.
It's quite hard to find a flower that's not moving.
Well, in a studio, maybe.
Yeah.
And you set up your camera, and suddenly you get 96 megapixel image. So you get all the texture of the petals and all the lovely stuff and different color gradations and things like this.
That's true.
It could be cool.
It could be cool. It's actually something that I'm quite interested in toying with when we actually have a unit in our hands. And Ed says having a 45 megapixel to mainly use in DX mode, I think would be a waste. Yes, but if you have the 45 megapixel camera already, what would be more of a waste than going out and buying a DX camera just for the crop?
Yeah.
Or just using the camera you have in crop. But that was my point.
I mean, let's be honest, it is an expensive way to do that.
Yeah.
But if we're going to have Z500, what do you think the price will be?
Yeah.
So you definitely looking something around to 299.
Yeah.
And then when we reach that point, then we still have, we have people complaining, oh, it's a DX camera, why are they charging so much? So it's a difficult situation. And then Nikon needs to assess the idea how many people will buy that camera. And I'm sure they run their focus groups and, it's all now, they can see those things and they'll decide if it's worth research and development. But I agree, yes, paying £4,000 for DX camera is a bit rich, but if you don't have any other options at the moment, this is the only option,
Yeah. So exactly that. And there's a couple of other people saying, like, for example, Sony, they have their own software. Fuji has its own software. As Nikon have said, NX Studio is going to be able to handle the pixel shift images. But I think that I don't see any reason why you wouldn't have a third-party software that could also do that. NX Studio is free anyway, so you can just go ahead and download that. Now, there are a few people who are joining a little bit late before we disappear. Yes, it does look like Nikon are announcing something next week. They have sent out a teaser. It is called Plena. It is a lens.
It's H5 1.2 Mark II.
We don't know what it is.
You can sell now all your H5s that you bought back to me.
Yeah.
Give you a good price.
£5.
Exactly.
So that you can have
It's
one.
my threshold.
Excellent. I mean, the last thing that I would say is that the ZF, for all of those people that are thinking of getting one, what camera are you potentially trading in for it? Because I would be very interested to know if we're going to see a flurry of Z6s or Z6 IIs, or maybe we'll even see a couple of Z7 Mark 1s, you know, like if so, let me know.
Nikon DF.
Could be my new camera. Yeah, there was someone who said that as a DF user, they're really looking forward to this camera. And I think as a final sort of question, do you think that this camera will make some people go mirrorless at this point? Do you think that this is the camera that will convince them to move into mirrorless?
It's difficult. I think this camera definitely has an appeal. An appeal not just based on looks, but based on the technology. So Nikon didn't gimp the camera. They literally like fit as much as they could in terms of, you know, just technology and, you know, all the different settings. And the pixel shift is a new thing, you know.
Yeah.
So they really kind of compiled a really nice product, which also has very interesting visual look. And if you like that visual look, you'll enjoy it. If you don't, you don't. But I think that a lot of people will consider it. I mean, I'm definitely considering it. I think that is the camera. As I say, I was thinking about getting M10 secondhand, like, you know, and now I'm thinking about Nikon ZF.
Well, this is definitely cheaper than the M10.
Exactly.
So there you go. Scott says maybe a Mark 1 Z7. Colin said no trade-in camera because he's going to keep all his cameras.
Exactly. They'll stay with you.
So
you can't have too many cameras. There's a camera for any mood.
there is. Every day.
Exactly.
Just like changing your socks, changing camera. And Andy says, I'm convinced I just can't afford it. Yeah, at some point maybe it will come down a bit in a year or so. I think that next week we're going to have a camera here. We may also have someone to talk about the camera. We don't know yet, aside from ourselves.
Who's that mysterious person?
We will see. Scheduling permitting. Scott said, do you want my Z7? For free? Absolutely.
I'll give you £5.
It's come full circle. It's going to come straight back. I sold it to him.
That's what it is.
So it wasn't my Z7, just to clarify. So next week we will have an actual physical camera here. As now we know that there's this 27th of September announcement.
Something's happening.
We will be able to talk about whatever that is next week as well. So stay tuned for that. The VJ just asked as a final question, is there a battery grip available? It's not actually a battery grip. It's a hand grip, essentially.
Yeah. But, you know, some people really want to get MD12 with it.
Yeah.
I'm not buying ZF unless there's MD12.
They want an extra battery, but you can just plug it into a power bank if you need to. Anyway.
No, they want that feel of this chungus at the back.
No,
you know,
it's already 705 grams. We don't need it to be any heavier. Thank you very much. Anyway, so stay tuned to be with us next week. We are publishing a video this weekend, all the usual stuff. We'll have the Nikon report out and all that stuff. Thank you very much for bearing with us while we buffered for a while, and have a great weekend all. Take some pictures.
Yeah, do that.
Okay, bye.